Welcome back, everyone. Ready for another deep dive?
Always up for a deep dive, especially when it involves magical creatures and uncharted realms.
Me too. Last time, we just skimmed the surface of FairyFrens. But today, we're going all in. Enchanted forests, powerful clans, a little bit of sci-fi.
And a whole lot of lore. It's fascinating how they've built this entire world LEYs.
Right. LEYs, the third planet in a 6-planet solar system.
Yeah.
They've even named the whole system FA3. Like, they didn't want to leave any detail unexplored.
Sorry?
But before we get lost in space...
Literally.
Haha, yeah. Let's start with the basics. We know FairyFrens aims to spark creativity and emotional intelligence, which is cool, but it's the world itself that's got me hooked. So LEYs is split into 2 realms.
It is. Orderyn and Lumen, almost like 2 sides of the same coin.
Okay, so Orderyn, from our notes, it seems pretty structured, right?
Very much so. Orderyn is all about logic, science, structure. Think labs, schedules, the works.
No magic.
They've actually rejected magic entirely.
Wow, that's a tough one. I mean, think of what they're missing, especially compared to Lumen. We've got notes about bending time, flowing magic.
Lumen is where imagination runs wild. It's like stepping into a dream.
But how do these 2 totally different realms even exist together? Wouldn't they be constantly at odds?
That's where the OR grid comes in. It's this network of ley lines.
Ley lines, right. We saw that in the notes.
They're like the lifeblood of the entire solar system, the very energy that sustains both Orderyn and Lumen. It connects everything in FA3.
Okay, so the OR grid is like the glue holding everything together. That makes it pretty important, wouldn't you say? What happens if something goes wrong with this OR grid?
Well, that's where things get really interesting. The OR grid is in trouble. It's throwing LEYs into chaos.
Yeah, I see how.
Time is fluctuating. Portals are opening randomly. The balance is getting shaky.
Sounds intense. But before we get into all that drama, let's talk about the FairyFrens themselves. 4 clans, each with their own unique powers and personalities, right?
Right. And each clan embodies different aspects of creativity and emotional intelligence.
Okay, so let's break them down one by one. First up, the Daughters of the Mist.
The Daughters of the Mist, they live in the Lilac Lakes, always shrouded in mist, very mysterious. They're all about intuition, visions, and the flow of the ley lines.
Led by Alara Mist, if I remember correctly.
Yes, Alara Mist, a total enigma, even to her own clan.
Sounds like my kind of fairy friend. Then we have the Fairy Guard. They sound a bit more, well, guarded.
Aha. Well, the name is fitting. They're the protectors of Lumen. Steadfast, loyal, always ready to defend their realm. They reside in Selene.
And they're a leader.
Suni Guard. You can practically feel the regal air around her. Very much the protector, the defender.
If the Daughters of the Mist are about intuition and the Fairy Guard about protection, who are the strategists? The planner.
Ah, you must be thinking of the Willow Warriors. They're all about knowledge, discipline, and maintaining balance.
And they live where?
In the forested treedom where the great tree stands, they're led by Kai Warrior, always seems to have a plan.
Okay, so we've got the Visionaries, the Protectors, and the Strategists.
Don't forget the Mystic Maidens.
Oh, right, the Mystic Maidens. They sound like the free spirits of the bunch, wouldn't you say? Adaptable, intuitive.
Masters of water! They even use their powers to withstand those crazy tornadoes that rip through their home.
Where's that again?
Windworld, this beautiful lagoon-like rainforest. And their leader, the ever-so-zen Eloin Den, goes with the flow, believes in the natural order of things.
Okay, 4 clans, each with their own distinct vibe. Which one do you think you'd be drawn to if you lived in Lumen, I mean?
Tough choice. They all have their appeal, but probably the Mystic Maidens. I love the idea of going with the flow and being able to, control water, imagine the possibilities.
Right. I'm leaning towards the Daughters of the Mist myself. Always been a sucker for a good mystery. But speaking of mysteries, what's the deal with this great tree? It's not just some pretty scenery, is it?
Not at all. The great tree is the source of magic and life for all of Lumen.
And it's sentient.
It is. Think of it as a living library of wisdom and energy connected directly to the OR grid. And get this, it actually chooses the rulers of Lumen.
Wow, okay. Talking trees. I guess that's not so unusual in a world of FairyFrens. But let's talk about the current ruler, Queen Faye, Right.
Right.
The Great Tree chose her, but what's her mission?
Queen Faye, she's all about unity and harmony. She wants to reunite those fractured clans and restore balance to Lumen. She's a beacon of hope, embodies compassion and true leadership.
Sounds like Lumen needs her, especially with this Panowyn character causing trouble.
Panowyn, a former heir to the throne, she's gone rogue, driven by vengeance and her weapon of choice, the OR grid itself.
So we've got someone who wants to destroy the very thing that connects and sustains everything.
It's a classic tale of unchecked ambition. She wants to manipulate the OR grid and destroy LEYs. Think about what happens when someone with that much power goes off the rails.
Sounds like a recipe for disaster. But wait, we have this other character, Jon Lennox, the physics student. He's from Orderyn, right? How does he fit into all of this?
Imagine living in a world that denies the existence of magic, and then suddenly you're thrown into a realm where it's everyday life. That's Jon.
Talk about culture shock.
Right. He's a skeptic, a man of science, and now he's surrounded by talking trees and time-bending magic, not to mention those fairy friends with their extraordinary powers.
Must be quite a sight to see, this Jon Lennox, trying to make sense of it all.
Oh, and he's not alone. His loyal Yorkshire Terrier, Shep, came along for the ride. I think Shep is having a much easier time adjusting.
Well, who wouldn't love a world full of magical smells and endless fields to explore? I'm betting Shep is living his best life. But Jon, I imagine he's struggling a bit.
He is, but that clash between his scientific worldview and the reality of Lumen is what makes his character so interesting. Can he overcome his skepticism and embrace the magic? That's the big question.
It's a good one. And it leads perfectly into our next segment, where we'll delve deeper into the clans, their powers, their strengths, and their weaknesses. Because even the most magical beings must have their vulnerabilities, right?
Every rose has its thorn, you could say. Or in this case, every fairy friend has their blind spot. But we'll get into all that after a short break.
Sounds good. We'll be right back with more FairyFrens fun after this.
Each clan has their strengths, definitely. But those strengths can sometimes become their weaknesses, right? It's all about balance.
So true. Okay, let's start with the Daughters of the Mist. Their connection to the ley lines is obviously a huge asset. It lets them tap into that flow of energy and even see glimpses of the future.
They can, it's incredible. But that reliance on the ley lines could also backfire, especially with Panowyn messing with the OR grid.
Ah, good point. Imagine having your connection to the very source of your power disrupted.
Exactly. Their visions could get all messed up. And their magic. Who knows if it would even work properly? They'd be incredibly vulnerable.
Okay, so the Daughters of the Mist, powerful but fragile. What about the Fairy Guard? They always seem so steadfast, loyal, ready to defend Lumen at all costs. What could possibly be their weakness?
Well, think about it. Their strength is in their loyalty, in their unwavering adherence to tradition. But that can make them a bit inflexible, right? What happens when the situation demands a new approach, a different way of thinking?
I see what you mean. Like, they might be so focused on following the rules that they miss an opportunity to adapt or improvise.
Exactly. Their strength could become their downfall if they're not careful.
Interesting. Okay, now the Willow Warriors, the master strategists, they seem to have a plan for everything. What could possibly throw them off balance?
Well, sometimes you need more than just logic and strategy, right? Sometimes you have to trust your instincts, your gut feelings.
I get it. Sometimes you just got to go with the flow. But the Willow Warriors, they seem more like the analyze every possible outcome type.
They do. And that's not always a bad thing. But it could lead to them overthinking things, maybe even missing out on opportunities that require a bit of spontaneity.
So their reliance on logic could actually limit them in some ways.
Interesting. It seems like every strength has a flip side, a potential weakness. What about the Mystic Maidens? They're all about adaptability, going with the flow. What could possibly be their downfall?
Well, think about it. They're so adaptable, so in tune with change. But that constant fluidity could also make it hard to make a decision, to stick with a plan when things get tough.
So too much flexibility could lead to indecision. I hadn't thought of that.
Exactly. It's like finding that balance, knowing when to go with the flow and when to stand firm.
Okay, now I'm really seeing how each clan's strength can be their weakness. It's like a delicate dance.
It is. And that's part of what makes the FairyFrens universe so compelling, I think. It's a reminder that we're all stronger together. Our differences, they can become our greatest assets when we learn to collaborate and support each other.
That's such a powerful message, and it's so relevant to our own world, isn't it? We could all learn a thing or two from the FairyFrens about embracing diversity and working together to solve problems. Absolutely. But let's not forget about the OR grid. This whole conflict, it revolves around that network of ley lines, that lifeblood of the entire system.
Right. We know it connects everything in the FA3 solar system, but how does it actually work? Is it like a magical internet or something? Give us the tech specs.
Think of it more like the circulatory system of the solar system, the veins and arteries that carry energy to every corner of FA3. It's that flow of energy that connects the planets, the stars, the realms within each planet.
So it's the life force of the entire system. That's why it's so crucial to LEYs, right? And why Panowyn messing with it is such a big deal.
Exactly. It's like throwing a wrench into a finely tuned machine. It's causing all sorts of disruptions, weather patterns going haywire, time itself fluctuating. She's basically creating cracks in reality.
Okay, that's officially terrifying. But the thing is, those cracks, those disruptions, they're being felt everywhere. Even in Orderyn, where they deny magic exists.
It's a good point. It's like a reminder that we can't just ignore things we don't understand. They can still affect us, whether we like it or not.
So we've got this OR grid, this circulatory system. But what about the Great Tree? We know it's connected, but how? It's not just plugged in with the USB cable, is it?
Not quite. Think of the Great Tree as the heart of Lumen, and by extension, the heart of the FA3 solar system. It helps regulate the flow of energy through the OR grid, keeping everything in balance.
Okay, so Panowyn's attacks, they're not just hitting the OR grid, they're also putting a strain on the Great Tree. It's like she's attacking the heart of the entire system.
Exactly. And if the Great Tree falls, well, the consequences could be catastrophic, not just for Lumen, but for Orderyn as well. It's a reminder that we're all connected, that what happens in one part of the system can have ripple effects throughout.
Wow, the stakes just got a lot higher. But let's shift gears for a moment and talk about Jon Lennox, our human in Lumen. He's a scientist from a world that denies magic. Now, he's thrust into a realm where magic is everywhere. What do you think will be his biggest challenge in all of this?
I think his biggest challenge will be overcoming his own skepticism. Imagine being raised in a world that values logic and scientific proof, where magic is dismissed as fantasy. And then suddenly you're face to face with a reality that defies all the laws of physics you've ever learned.
Yeah, talk about a mind-blowing experience. It's like that moment when you realize that everything you thought you knew about the world is wrong, or at least incomplete.
Exactly. Jon's entire framework for understanding reality is being shaken to its core. He'll have to learn to trust his intuition, to embrace the unknown, even when it contradicts everything his logical mind is telling him.
It's going to be fascinating to see how he navigates this clash between his scientific worldview and the magical reality of Lumen. Do you think he'll be able to bridge that gap?
That's the million-dollar question. And it's a question that resonates with our own lives, too. How do we reconcile our rational minds with the mysteries of the universe? How do we make sense of the things that defy explanation?
It's a question that philosophers and scientists have been grappling with for centuries. Maybe Jon's journey will offer some new insights.
It might, but he's not the only one on a journey. We have Queen Faye trying to unite the clans and restore harmony, and then we have Panowyn consumed by her quest for vengeance.
Two powerful figures with very different visions for the future of LEYs. It's like a clash of ideologies, a battle for the very soul of Lumen. But what's at the root of their conflict? What are their backstories?
Well, Panowyn's story is particularly intriguing. She was once a promising young heir, eager to lead, full of potential, but she was also different. She had this incredible affinity for magic, even more so than anyone in her lineage.
So she was gifted, a prodigy, but maybe seen as a threat because of her power.
It's possible. And unfortunately, the rejection and betrayal she experienced, it fueled her resentment, turned her desire for acceptance into this thirst for revenge.
Like that saying, hurt people hurt people. Her actions, they're driven by pain, a desire to make those who hurt her feel the same pain.
It's a sad story, really. It makes you understand her motivations, even if you don't condone her actions.
It does add a layer of complexity to her character. She's not just a one-dimensional villain. She's a product of her experiences.
Exactly. And then we have Queen Faye, chosen by the Great Tree to unite the fractured clans and restore balance.
What makes her the right person for the job? Is it just her magical abilities, or is there something more?
Queen Faye, she has this rare blend of wisdom, compassion, and leadership skills. She understands that everything is connected, that balance and harmony are essential for a thriving world.
So she's not just a powerful magic wielder, she's a true leader, someone who inspires trust and loyalty.
Exactly. Her strength comes not just from her magic, but from her character. She embodies the best of Lumin. Creativity, compassion, a deep reverence for the natural world.
It's like she's the embodiment of light standing against the darkness that Panowyn represents. But their conflict, it's not just about good versus evil, is it?
It's also about the choices we make. When faced with adversity, do we choose love and forgiveness? Or do we choose anger and bitterness? It's a question that resonates with all of us.
It does. And maybe the story of Queen Faye and Panowyn will offer some insights into the consequences of those choices.
It might. But their stories are just one part of this larger tapestry. There are so many layers to this world, so many themes woven throughout the narrative.
Like what? Give us the big picture. What are the overarching themes being explored in the FairyFrens universe?
Well, one of the central themes is that balance between logic and magic, between the rational mind and the intuitive heart. You see it in the contrast between Orderyn and Lumen. Orderyn has become too focused on logic and reason, dismissing the power of imagination and creativity.
While Lumen embraces magic, but is also dealing with the consequences of unchecked power and the dangers of division.
It's like a cautionary tale about finding that middle ground, that balance between the head and the heart. It's something we struggle with in our own world, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. We're always trying to find that balance between logic and intuition, science and creativity. And often we end up swinging too far in one direction or the other.
Exactly. The story of LEYs is a reminder that we need both. We need logic and magic, reason and intuition, science and creativity to truly thrive.
Another theme that keeps popping up is the importance of unity, right? We see it in Queen Faye's efforts to bring the clans together and Jon's journey to connect with the FairyFrens, even in Panowyn's desire to unite those who share her resentment.
It's everywhere. It highlights the power of coming together, the strength that comes from collaboration and working towards a common goal. It reminds us that we're more alike than we are different, that even our differences can become strengths when we learn to embrace them and work together.
It's a message of hope. Even in the face of division and adversity, we can find strength in unity. We can create a better future together.
And those themes, they connect to that larger message of the FairyFrens universe, fostering creativity, emotional intelligence, a sense of community. It's about recognizing the magic within ourselves and the power of working together to overcome challenges and build a more compassionate world.
That's beautiful. Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here, but before we move on, let's talk about the FairyFrens themselves. We've got all this information about their world, their powers, the clans, but what's their role in all of this? What do they represent?
They're like the embodiment of magic and imagination. They're the guardians of creativity, the protectors of nature, the keepers of ancient wisdom.
So they're a symbol of hope, a reminder that even in a world that often feels dominated by logic and reason, there's still room for magic and wonder.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They remind us that there's more to life than what can be measured and quantified. There's beauty and mystery all around us if we're willing to open our hearts and minds to it.
I love that. But they're also divided, right? 4 distinct clans, each with their own unique powers and perspectives. Why aren't they united as one? What's the significance of this division?
Their divisions, I think, they mirror the divisions that exist within ourselves and within our own societies. Each clan embodies different values, different approaches to life. Their separation, it reflects the challenges we face in bridging those divides, in finding common ground and working together despite our differences.
It's like a reflection of our own human tendency to categorize ourselves, to form groups based on shared beliefs, and to sometimes see those who are different as outsiders, even enemies.
It is. But the FairyFrens also show us the power of unity, the importance of embracing diversity. Their divisions don't negate their shared history, their connection to Lumen. They may have their differences, but they also understand that they're stronger together.
Like a family, right? You might have disagreements, arguments even, but you still love and support each other when it really matters.
Exactly. Now, we've talked about their connection to nature, but what about technology? Orderyn is obviously technologically advanced, but how does technology manifest in Lumen? Can magic and technology coexist?
That's a great question. It seems like they would be at odds, wouldn't they?
You'd think so. But in the FairyFrens universe, it's not so black and white. While Lumen is a world of magic, they also have their own unique forms of technology.
So it's not about machines and gadgets. It's about harnessing the power of nature in a different way.
Precisely. Their systems for channeling energy from the ley lines are incredibly sophisticated. They blend scientific principles with magical knowledge, and their ways of manipulating time and space, well, they seem magical, but who's to say there isn't a scientific basis that we don't yet understand?
It's like they're showing us that there's not always a clear separation between technology and magic. It's more about finding that balance, a way for technology to enhance our lives without disconnecting us from the natural world.
Exactly. It's a vision of a future where technology and nature can coexist in harmony. And speaking of visions, we haven't even touched on their mythology.
Oh, right. The myths and legends that shape their understanding of the universe. Every culture has them, right? What are some of the key myths in the FairyFrens universe?
One of the most important is the story of creation. It tells of how LEYs and the Orderyn came to be. It's a beautiful myth, really.
Okay, I'm all ears. Tell me everything. How does the world of LEYs begin?
In the beginning, there was only energy, a vast expanse of pure potential. And from this energy, 3 celestial beings emerged: the Weaver, the Guardian, and the Dreamer. Each played a crucial role in shaping the universe as we know it.
3 celestial beings, each with a specific role. What do they do exactly? I'm picturing this as a kind of cosmic collaboration.
It is. The Weaver, using threads of starlight, wove the fabric of space and time, creating the planets and stars. The Guardian, with a heart of molten gold, breathed life into those planets, creating diverse ecosystems and all the creatures that inhabit them.
And the Dreamer.
The Dreamer, with a mind of pure imagination, breathed magic into the world. They created the ley lines, that network of energy that became the OR grid.
Wow. So they're like the architects of the universe, each contributing their unique gifts to create this incredible world. What happened to them after they finished creating LEYs?
That's a question that's still unanswered. Some believe they continue to watch over LEYs from a distant realm, only intervening when the balance is threatened. Others think their essence is woven into the fabric of the world, their power flowing through the ley lines.
So they're both present and absent? Their influence is felt, but their physical forms remain a mystery. It adds a nice touch of wonder to the story.
It does. It reminds us that even in a world of magic and fantasy, there are still mysteries beyond our comprehension, forces that we can only glimpse but never fully understand.
And that's okay. It keeps things interesting. But getting back to the myth, it's interesting how it reinforces that balance between science and magic that we keep talking about.
Right. The FairyFrens, they understand that both are essential. They don't see science and magic as opposing forces, but as complementary aspects of a greater whole.
The Weaver represents order, structure, the scientific principles that govern the universe.
And the Dreamer embodies the imaginative power of magic. And the Guardian, with their heart of molten gold, represents the life force that flows through everything, connecting the scientific and the magical.
Beautiful. So this creation myth sets the stage for the entire FairyFrens universe. Are there other myths or legends that influence their worldview? Do they have beliefs about life after death, for example?
They do. There are whispers of a legend about a hidden realm called the Whisperwood. It's where the spirits of departed FairyFrens reside.
Ah, so that's their version of an afterlife. What's it like?
It's described as a place of peace and tranquility, where the boundaries between the physical and spiritual realms blur.
It's nice to know that even in a world of magic, there's a place of peace after death.
It's comforting, isn't it?
It is. But how are these stories transmitted? Do they have written records, or is it all oral tradition?
They have a rich oral tradition, with stories passed down through generations of storytellers. But they also have a unique form of written language.
Okay, I gotta hear. What kind of written language do they have?
It's said to be woven from moonlight and whispers.
Woven from moonlight and whispers. Okay, now you're just messing with me.
I swear I'm not. The specifics are shrouded in mystery, but it's said that the FairyFrens can capture moonlight and weave it into these intricate patterns that hold stories and knowledge. And their whispers, infused with magic, they can imprint those stories onto reality itself.
Wow, so their language is both tangible and ethereal, existing in both the physical and spiritual realms. That's incredibly cool.
It is. It's a testament to their creativity and their deep connection to magic.
Okay, so we've got these incredible myths and legends, this unique written language, this amazing world they've built. But what about the future of the FairyFrens? What challenges do they face? And what possibilities lie ahead?
Well, the biggest challenge right now is Panowyn. Her manipulation of the OR grid is destabilizing everything, creating rifts between realms, threatening the very fabric of reality. The FairyFrens have to find a way to stop her before it's too late.
It's a battle for survival, a classic fight between good and evil. But what about the possibilities? What kind of future could they create if they succeed in overcoming this threat?
If they can overcome this, the possibilities are endless. Imagine a world where magic and science coexist in harmony, where creativity flourishes, where communities come together to solve problems and build a better future.
It sounds like a utopia, a world where the best of humanity shines through. But how do they get there? What are the keys to unlocking this potential?
I think the keys lie in embracing the values that the FairyFrens represent. Unity, creativity, compassion, a deep connection to nature. Those are the qualities that will allow them to overcome adversity and build a brighter future.
So it's not just about defeating Panowyn, it's about building a better world, a world that reflects those values. That's a message that resonates with all of us, right? We're all facing challenges, and we could all use a little more unity, creativity, and compassion in our lives.
Absolutely. The FairyFrens offer us a vision of hope, a reminder that even in the darkest of times, we have the power to choose a different path, to create a world that's more just, more compassionate, and more sustainable.
Okay, this is all so fascinating. But I want to come back to Jon Lennox for a minute. This scientist, this skeptic from a world that rejects magic. What brings him to Lumen? Does he have a specific role to play in all of this?
It's a question that's still unfolding. But his arrival in Lumen is no accident. He stumbled upon a hidden portal near his home in Orderyn, and it's almost as if the portal chose him. At first, he's totally skeptical, his scientific mind struggling to process everything he's seeing.
It's like he's a fish out of water.
Exactly. It's a clash of worldviews, the logic of Orderyn versus the magic of Lumin. But as he encounters the FairyFrens, as he experiences the magic firsthand, that skepticism starts to waver.
So he's forced to confront his preconceived notions about reality. But what's his purpose? Does he have a specific role to play in this conflict between Queen Fae and Panowyn?
That's a mystery that's yet to be revealed. Some people believe that his arrival was foretold in an ancient prophecy, that he holds the key to restoring balance to LEYs. Others think it's just a coincidence, a chance encounter that will have unintended consequences.
Intriguing. So he's a wild card, a variable that could tip the scales in either direction. But how does he fit into the world of the FairyFrens? How do they perceive him?
At first, they're wary. They see him as an outsider, a product of a world that has rejected magic. But as they get to know him, they start to see his potential.
What makes them see him as a potential ally?
His scientific knowledge. It could be incredibly valuable in understanding the OR grid and finding a way to counter Panowyn's attacks. They realize that his unique perspective, his ability to bridge the worlds of science and magic, might be exactly what they need.
So he's a bridge between two worlds, a potential mediator between these opposing forces. But what about his relationships with the FairyFrens on a personal level?
Trust is a big thing in Lumen, especially when magic and power are involved. But as Jon proves himself, as he shows his willingness to learn, to adapt, to fight for Lumen, that trust starts to grow.
It's like he's earning his stripes, showing them that he's more than just a skeptical scientist. He's someone who cares about their world and is willing to fight for it.
Exactly, and that's what makes his journey so compelling. It's not just about understanding magic. It's about personal growth, about learning to trust his intuition, to embrace his creativity, to connect with others in a deeper way.
His story is a reminder that we all have the potential for growth and change, even when faced with the unknown.
It's true. Sometimes the biggest challenges lead to the most profound transformations. But enough about Jon for now. We've talked about these clans, their powers, their strengths, their weaknesses. But what do they actually look like? Do they have wings? Are they sparkly? Give us the visual details. Oh, they're not your average fairy tale creatures. Think humanoid form, but with this ethereal beauty that sets them apart. Shimmering skin, glowing eyes, hair that flows like liquid moonlight.
Okay, you had me a shimmering skin. But what about their clothing? Do they wear anything specific to their clan or their role in society?
Their clothing is as diverse as their personalities and powers, but it always reflects their connection to nature.
So spill the tea. Give us all the fashion details. Starting with the Daughters of the Mist. What do these ethereal beings wear?
Picture flowing gowns of gossamer fabrics adorned with delicate floral accents. They're like embodiments of nature's elegance, draped in the colors of the mist and the flowers that bloom by the lilac lakes.
I can practically see them gliding through the mist, their gowns trailing behind them like wisps of smoke. What about the fairy guard, those fierce protectors? Do they wear armor?
They do. Polished silver, adorned with the emblem of their clan. Functional, elegant, conveying a sense of strength and authority.
Warrior princesses. Okay, I'm loving this. What about the Willow Warriors? Their clothing must reflect their role as guardians of knowledge, right?
Earthy tones, practical garb, they're all about blending in with the forest, moving with that quiet strength and wisdom.
So they're not about flashy fashion statements, more about functionality and respect for nature. What about the mystic maidens, the water masters?
Flowing garments, shades of blue and green, often adorned with shells and pearls. Imagine them dancing beneath waterfalls, their clothes swirling around them like the currents of a river.
Okay, now I'm getting serious fashion envy. But we've only talked about the female fairy friends. What about the guys? What roles do they play in this world?
That's a question that sparked a lot of debate within the FairyFrens community. The creators have been intentionally ambiguous about the role of males in their society.
Really? Why do you think that is?
Well, it's led to all sorts of interesting theories.
Oh, I bet. What are some of the theories floating around?
Some people think that the males exist in a separate realm altogether. Others believe they're integrated into the clans, but with roles and responsibilities that hasn't been revealed yet.
It's a clever way to keep the audience guessing and encourage them to use their imaginations.
It is. Maybe they'll even take inspiration from some of the fans' ideas. It would be amazing to see that level of collaboration between the creators and the community.
I agree. It would really solidify that sense of community and shared ownership of the story.
Yeah.
But speaking of mysteries, there's something else I wanted to ask about. This full moon shift that happens in Lumen. What exactly does that involve?
Ah, yes. The full moon shift. Think of it as a time of heightened energy, of transformation, the magic of the full moon. It infuses everything in Lumen, amplifying the powers of the FairyFrens.
So it's like a supercharged magical experience, like everyone levels up for the night.
Exactly, but it's not always a positive thing. The amplified magic, it can be unpredictable, even dangerous if it's not controlled.
So it's a time of celebration, but also a time of caution. Like, party responsibly, fairy friends.
Exactly. It adds this element of excitement and danger to their lives. But enough about the full moon. Let's get back to our antagonist, Panowyn.
Right. We know she's on a mission to destroy LEYs. But what exactly are her powers? What makes her such a formidable opponent?
She's a powerful sorceress, that's for sure. But her real strength lies in her knowledge. She understands the Odar grid, its intricacies, its vulnerabilities.
So she's not just about brute force, she's a strategic thinker.
Exactly. She can manipulate the flow of energy, creating disruptions that manifest in all sorts of unsettling ways. Think warped time, distorted space, powerful illusions. She's not someone you want to mess with.
Sounds like she's a master of psychological warfare as well. But is there any hope of reasoning with her, of appealing to her better nature?
That's the big question. Some people believe that redemption is possible, that beneath all that anger and resentment, there's still some good in her. Others think she's too far gone, that her thirst for vengeance has consumed her.
It's a tough one. Can someone who's committed terrible acts ever truly be redeemed? It's a question we grapple with in our own world, too.
It is. And the FairyFrens universe, it doesn't shy away from those tough questions. It encourages us to think critically about the nature of good and evil and the possibility of redemption.
Okay, so we've talked about Panowyn's motivations, her powers, but I'm also curious about the FairyFrens' connection to nature. We know they live in harmony with their surroundings, but how does that connection shape their culture and way of life?
It's woven into everything they do. They have this deep, intuitive understanding of their place within the natural world. They recognize that they're a part of it, not separate from it.
So it's not just about living in nature, it's about living with nature.
Exactly. They see nature as a source of wisdom, power, inspiration. They take only what they need and they give back in return.
It sounds like they've achieved that perfect balance that we're still striving for in our own world. What are some specific examples of how this connection manifests in their daily lives?
Well, their homes, for example. They're often built into the natural landscape, blending seamlessly with the trees, waterfalls, caves. They use natural materials for their clothing, their tools, even their forms of energy.
It's like they've mastered the art of sustainable living.
They have, and their connection to nature, it's not just about practicality or sustainability, it's also a source of their magic.
Right. They draw power from the ley lines, which are like the veins of the planet, channeling the energy of nature itself. It's like they've tapped into a source of renewable energy that's both powerful and sustainable.
Exactly. And that connection, it also influences their social structures. It fosters a sense of empathy and compassion, not just towards each other, but toward all living creatures.
So it's not just about environmental sustainability, it's about social and emotional intelligence as well. They're showing us that our well-being is interconnected with the well-being of the planet and all its inhabitants.
It's a holistic approach to life. a recognition that we're all part of a larger web of life. And our actions, they have consequences that ripple outward.
It makes you wonder, who are the minds behind this world? Where did the inspiration for the FairyFrens come from?
The FairyFrens are the brainchild of a group of artists, writers, and technologists. They wanted to create a world that sparks imagination and inspires creativity, especially for younger audiences.
So they're not just storytellers, they're world builders.
Exactly. And they drew inspiration from myths and legends from all over the world, blending those elements together to create something new and unique. But they also wanted to incorporate science fiction and fantasy.
Creating a world that's both familiar and fantastical. But it's not just about entertainment, is it? They have a deeper purpose, right?
Oh, definitely. They want to create a platform for fostering creativity, imagination, and emotional intelligence. They believe in the power of storytelling to teach valuable life lessons and inspire positive change.
So it's not just about escapism. It's about empowering young people, giving them the tools to explore their own creativity, to connect with others, to make a difference.
Exactly. And they're doing it through storytelling, community engagement, and cutting-edge technology.
Okay, let's talk about the technology. We've talked about how the FairyFrens use technology in their world, but how are the creators using technology to bring this universe to life?
They're using a variety of technologies to create truly immersive experiences.
Yeah.
3D animation, virtual reality, augmented reality. They want their audience to feel like they're stepping into the world of the FairyFrens.
So it's not just about passively consuming a story. It's about active participation, about experiencing the world firsthand.
Right. They've created virtual reality experiences where you can explore different realms of LEYs. You can wander through the lilac lakes or visit the bustling marketplace in Selene. And they're also developing augmented reality apps that let you bring the FairyFrens into your own world.
Wow, that's taking storytelling to a whole new level.
It is. They're also using technology to build a sense of community. They have online platforms where fans can connect with each. They have online platforms where fans can connect with each other, share their creations, and even collaborate on projects.
So it's like a virtual community, a place where fans can come together to celebrate their love of the FairyFrens.
It is. And the creators, they really listen to the fans. They want their input, their ideas. It's a truly collaborative storytelling experience.
That's so cool. They're not just telling a story, they're building a world together with their fans.
Exactly. They understand that a story is never truly finished. It's a living thing that evolves and grows with the participation of its audience.
Okay, so we've got this incredible world, this amazing technology, this vibrant community. What's the overall impact of the FairyFrens universe? What kind of impact are they having on their audience, and what's their vision for the future?
They're having a profound impact, especially on young people. They're inspiring creativity, building community, and promoting empathy and compassion. Their vision for the future is to continue to grow this community, to expand their reach, and to use their platform to make a positive difference in the world.
So it's not just about entertainment. It's about creating a movement, a force for good. How are they working towards that vision?
Well, they're partnering with educational organizations. They're developing curricula that use the FairyFrens to teach valuable life lessons about creativity, emotional intelligence, and environmental awareness.
So they're bringing the FairyFrens into the classroom. That's awesome.
It is. They're also working with charities and nonprofits to raise awareness for important causes. They're really putting their money where their mouth is.
That's fantastic. They're showing that entertainment and social impact can go hand in hand.
Exactly. They're proving that storytelling can be a powerful tool for creating a better world.
It's inspiring, really. It reminds me that we all have the power to make a difference, no matter how small our actions may seem.
Absolutely. We can all contribute to a brighter future. Okay, I'm curious about one more thing before we move on. We talked about their language, but what about music? What does music sound like in Lumen?
Oh, their music is just as magical as their world. Imagine a blend of ethereal vocals, acoustic instruments, nature sounds, like Celtic harp melodies woven with the rustling of leaves and the flow of water.
It sounds beautiful. Do they have any unique instruments, or are they similar to the ones we have in our world?
They have instruments that are similar to ours, like flutes and drums, but they've also created their own instruments that harness the magical energies of Lumen.
So it's a fusion of familiar and fantastical, just like their entire world.
Exactly. And music plays a huge role in their culture. It's used for healing, storytelling, celebrations, mourning. It's how they connect with each other, with nature, with the magic that flows through Lumen.
Music is the language of their souls.
Well said. Okay, so we've talked about their culture, their world, their magic, their music. We've even touched on some pretty deep philosophical and ethical questions. But I want to circle back to something you mentioned earlier, the importance of community.
Ah, yes. Community is at the heart of the FairyFrens universe. The creators, they get it. They understand that a story is more than just words on a page or images on a screen.
Right. It's about creating a shared experience.
Exactly. It's a living thing that comes to life through the participation of the audience.
So it's a two-way street. It's a dialogue, a collaboration. How does that actually work? What role do the fans play in shaping the story?
The fans are encouraged to share their thoughts, their ideas, their creations. They have these online platforms where they can discuss theories, share fan art, write fan fiction, and even suggest ideas for future storylines.
That's amazing, like a giant brainstorming session. How do the creators actually use the fans' ideas?
They have a whole team dedicated to monitoring the online community. They're listening to the fans' feedback and looking for ideas that resonate.
So they're really taking it seriously. It's not just lip service to the idea of fan engagement.
Nope. They know that the fans are a huge part of what makes the FairyFrens universe so special. And their input, it helps keep the story fresh, relevant, and engaging.
It's brilliant, really. It creates this sense of shared ownership, this feeling that everyone is a part of something bigger than themselves.
Exactly. And it goes beyond the story itself. It's about building a community where people feel connected and empowered.
Okay, so we've talked about the community, the impact, the technology. Is there anything we missed? Anything else we need to mention before we wrap things up?
I think we've covered just about everything. But I do want to highlight one more thing. The FairyFrens' commitment to diversity and inclusion.
Oh, that's important. We talked about the different clans, the different approaches to life. But what about representation in terms of race, ethnicity, gender identity?
The creators are very intentional about that. They want everyone to feel seen and represented in their stories. They're always striving to create characters and storylines that are inclusive and empowering.
So it's not just about creating a magical world. It's about creating a world that's fair and just.
Exactly. A world where everyone has the opportunity to thrive.
It's refreshing to see a story that not only embraces diversity, but celebrates it, showing that our differences are what make us strong.
And that message, it aligns perfectly with the core values of the FairyFrens universe: creativity, compassion, and community.
Okay, so we've gone deep into the FairyFrens universe. We've explored the lore, the characters, the world, the technology, the themes, everything.
We have. And we've barely scratched the surface. There's so much more to discover, so many more stories to be told, so many possibilities to imagine.
It's a universe that's bursting with potential. But before we sign off, I have one last question for you. We've talked about Orderyn, the world of logic and science, and Lumen, the world of magic and creativity. Where do you stand on that debate? Logic versus magic, science versus creativity?
That's a tough one. I think the FairyFrens have shown us that it's not about choosing one over the other. It's about finding that balance, where logic and magic intersect, where science and creativity dance together, where our rational minds and our imaginative hearts can coexist.
Beautifully said. It's a message we need to hear, especially in a world that often feels so divided.
The FairyFrens, they remind us that we're more alike than we are different, that we all have something unique to offer. And together, we can create something amazing.
It's a message of hope, a call to action, a reminder that the future is not set in stone. It's something we create together.
I'm excited to see what the future holds for the FairyFrens and their incredible universe.
Me too. Till next time, everyone, keep those imaginations sparking. And remember, the magic is real if you believe.